Member for Moore.
Yes, thank you, Mr Speaker. My grievance today is to the Minister for Transport regarding fish kills and the condition of the Jurien Bay Marina. The Jurien Bay Marina is a valuable public asset that services the crayfishing and tourism sectors as well as meeting recreational needs, and is located 220 kilometres north of Perth. It's the only such marina that is available between the metropolitan area and Dongara. The marina serves as a gateway to the Jurien Bay Marine Park, which is an important area of biogeographic overlap between the tropical northern borders and the temperate south. The Department of Parks and Wildlife described the park as unique and point out that there is no comparable ecosystem in the world. The marina was constructed in 1988 with an original budget of $4.5 million. The expenditure on the project was capped at $10 million. Unfortunately, the original design was never completed. The marina functioned as intended for 12 years, but sand and weed channelled into the marina and into the mouth of the marina has built up over the years, altering the depth and impeding the flushing of water in and out of the marina. After heavy storms, sea wrack enters the marina, sinks onto the bottom and becomes covered in sand, and finally decomposes on the harbour bed, resulting in anoxic conditions and extensive fish kills. Monitoring between 1987 and 2000 established the marina entrance had shallowed by 1 metre. Without regular maintenance, the marina's depth continues to decline. The channel depth in October 2013 was a mere 1.6 metres. At this time, a yacht in trouble, 35 miles out to sea, was made to make its way to Jurien Bay. The listed depth of the Jurien Bay Marina is at the entrance is 4 metres. The yacht had a draft of 2.5 metres, so it had to remain out at sea, even though the skipper wasn't too well, for 2 days until the tide was right to actually get it into the marina. The entrance depth at the marina is listed at 4 metres, the basin at 3.5 metres. In October 2007, the then Department for Planning and Infrastructure prepared the construction of the construction of a spur groin off the Jurien Harbour's northern breakwater as a remedy for the seaweed problem. At that time, the department advised it didn't have the funding to proceed. It later estimated the cost at around about $705,000, and DPI indicated it would be seeking funding within the 2007-8 capital improvement program. In 2008, the officer of the then Minister for Planning and Infrastructure advised the construction of a wraparound arm on either side of the marina was not a viable option. However, construction of a spur groin off the harbour's northern breakwater was considered by DPI to be an important future work to minimise the movement of sand and weed into the harbour, and funding has not been allocated for these capital works. Over the years, there's been various temporary measures: weed removal by harvesting the floating weed, trawling nets and anchors, and in 2005 a dredging program was employed to treat the problem. Weed, as it settles in there, must be removed within days of appearing before it sinks to the harbour floor, and the apparatus that's used by, or proposed and has been used on occasions by the Department in Jurien Bay is a basket scoop. It's a woefully inadequate tool to achieve that task. I stress there's been no concerted or long-term approach to treat this massive problem. Fish kills, indeed kills of virtually all life in the marina, have occurred virtually every year over the past 13 years. This year the kills actually lined the beaches outside the marina as the fish were affected even to the outlying areas from the marina. Aside from the devastating and wholly unacceptable environmental impact, these kills impact the crayfishing industry and the tourism sector. Fittings on boats in the marina are affected by the toxic water, which is caused by the release of hydrogen sulphide gas. The several crayfish receival depots operating out of Jurien Bay use the water to pump through their systems to keep live the crayfish that are then exported. Live crayfish at times, as the Minister would know, have reached up to $90 a kilo in the last 12 months. Processed crayfish, which is the alternative, if those crays can't be kept alive, retails for much less, as low as $20 a kilo. Shire of Dandaragan has made a concerted effort to attract residents and tourists to Jurien Bay. The Jurien Bay Marina is seen as a key part of that strategy. The view, which has been shared by the government over the years, is evidenced by recent investment by the Department of Transport in the expansion of the boat trailer parking an addition of 2 more recreational boat ramps as well as disabled access floating pier. Department of Planning and Infrastructure, as it was then, the Shire of Dandaragan and other stakeholders were involved in a Land Corps-led planning exercise in 2006, which reinforced the significance of the marina to the region. Following an approach by the Shire of Dandaragan to the then Minister of Transport, the Honourable Simon O'Brien, a consultant was engaged by the department to develop a master plan to guide integration of the marina to the town's developing tourism industry to spur greater growth in that sector, and thereby better use of the significant asset that is the Jurien Bay Marina. That master plan was completed in 2012, but to my knowledge has not been yet adopted or released by the department. I'd urge the Minister to consider its implications when responding to the current situation. Far from attracting visitors, the sight and smell of massive fish kills will repel visitors and tourists, or in fact deter a first visit, given the speed at which bad news now travels. The fish kills are also impacting on the residential blocks in the vicinity of the marina. The stench is noticeable to residents living within 500 metres of the marina. Anecdotal evidence is that at the time of the last fish kill in October, workers in the area as well as volunteers at the Sea Rescue Centre reported symptoms such as headache and nausea, perhaps due to the presence of very high concentrations of hydrogen sulphide gas. The Shire closed the marina to swimmers due to high bacterial counts between October 8 and November 2. In mid-October, the bacterial counts in part of the marina were double that recommended for recreational use by the Australian and New Zealand guidelines for fresh and marine water quality. From an environmental, human health, fishing, tourism and development perspective, the community should not be subjected to further fish kills, and I call on the Minister to take action to rectify this. The community is angry that successive governments have allowed this situation to develop and to continue year after year, and they are raising a petition calling on the Minister to ensure the depth of the Jurien Bay Marina be restored to 4 metres and for long-term solutions to be developed and put in place. And I thank the Minister for taking this grievance.
Minister for Transport.
Can I thank the member for raising this issue, and can I say, as I've listened to you and read the briefing notes that were provided for me by my agencies to enable me to respond, it's like it is an exact reflection of what I went through as a local Shire President, as I know you were, in Dandaragan, and then as the local member at Port Geograph in Busselton. Scale may be a little different, but impact on the local community exactly the same. All of your frustrations are frustrations that I shared as you fish around in the great sea of government and try and find somebody who would be prepared to accept responsibility for delivering a solution. And it can be incredibly frustrating as a local MP. It can be incredibly frustrating as a local council representative, and it can be amazingly frustrating, or not amazing, but incredibly frustrating for the local community. Look, I've formed a view on this over the years, and this doesn't apply to all marinas along the coast, but there are a couple where it's my view that when the marinas were constructed, there was little, if any, consideration given to how that marina would interact with seagrass. And I'm not talking about live seagrass, because that would still be out in the ocean, but clearly when you have storm events, for us in Geograph Bay it's generally in May, you get massive movements of seagrass up onto the beach. And one of the big problems, as you pointed out, or the biggest problem at Jurien Bay, I don't think it's sand, it's the seagrass that gets trapped in the marina. I've lived within cooee of the marina and enjoyed that hydrogen sulphide smell. I've worked with local community groups who saw it as a threat to their health. And when you read the history, it is basically a litany of inaction. I mean, going back to, as you pointed out, to 2001, a recommendation to put a spur on. Nothing happened. There's been a whole range of studies. There's been different attempts to dredge, or there was a dredging program. There's been other attempts to use a barge to get some of the seaweed out, to remove the floating seaweed. There's been attempts recently to use effectively a trawl net behind a boat to clear out some of the seaweed. And at the end of the day, a lot of local people would have an idea as to what the solution is, but they're often not the same. One good thing that happened out of the, well, a lot of good things, but one of the good things that happened out of the work around Port Geograph was there was a significant study conducted on seagrass. Okay, the movement of seagrass, the dynamic of the movement of seagrass, how it accumulates, how it naturally clears, and all that sort of stuff. I would imagine that would be applicable, perhaps with variations right along the coast. What I'm proposing to you, member for more today, is two things. Firstly, in relation to dredging. So the reason I raise it about the seagrass is I think there's a lot more knowledge now about the need to deal with seagrass in relation to coastal infrastructure like your marina and like Port Geograph in Busselton. What I'm proposing is two things. Firstly, and I'll make sure my department get a copy of the Hansard so we do it. Firstly, in relation to dredging, I'm going to have to do a little bit more work with the department to find out when we can get access to a dredge and how we can fund that, but I'll give an undertaking that I'll do that as quickly as we possibly can. But secondly, and the dredging is important, but if you don't solve the problem, dredging just becomes a response to the issue, and it's expensive. I mean, I think from what I've seen, the cost of a decent dredging program at Jurien Bay Marina is about $1.5 million. So it's an expensive band-aid, and it's not solving the problem. I think what I'd like to do, as long as you're in agreement, is set up. The thing that worked at Port Geograph was when we set up a thing called the Port Geograph Working Group. No, I didn't set it up. Alana McTiernan set it up, and as I think I said in the House the other day, it was originally chaired by Adele Farina. It sort of didn't go far for a while, but once Barry House took over and we were in government, a few things started to happen. But with the working group, what it does is it gives an opportunity, with the Department of Transport playing the role as lead agency, because they should, it gives an opportunity to bring together the different stakeholders that you need to bring together, local community through the council. Indeed, on the Port Geograph Working Group also had some local community representatives. There is an ex-group in there. Yeah, well, I assume there would be, because you get very frustrated. It was chaired, as I say, by the Honourable Barry House. I might correspond with you and see if you wouldn't mind chairing this one for us, given it's in your community. DOT lead it, and we have different representatives from other government agencies as required, and generally the one that you need mostly is environment, or the representative from the environmental sort of regulatory body, because there's inevitably some crossover there. There's no way that the process will take as long as it did at Port Geograph, because a lot of that scientific work around seagrass is now a known fact. The task for the working group will be to come up with a long-term design fix, because if you don't have the design fix, you don't solve the problem. So if you're comfortable with that, and we'll correspond more formally around that, then that's what I'd like to know. I just want to assure you and the community that's not a process that I would set up to deliver a nothing outcome, or it's not a process I'd set up just to try and put off the need to make a decision, but you do need to do the work properly to come up with the design fix. Because as I'm sure you know, that people would have a range of different ideas about what should happen. It is important that people have an opportunity to have those ideas considered, but within the framework of the working group, there is some science and some engineering capacity brought into that design solution. So I think if we can do those two things, we'll hopefully deliver a short-term fix around the dredging, and I'll let you know when that can happen. But more importantly, if we can get the working group established quickly, appropriately resourced, and with an acknowledgement that it's my department, the Department of Transport's responsibility, I think we're going to deliver some really good outcomes. It's worked there. It solved a problem which is an enormous problem for my community. To me, it was a good model, and if we can apply that at Jurien Bay, you can get the positive outcomes that that marina can deliver for the community in terms of tourism and in terms of supporting the local industry, but also the landside developments that can happen off the back of the marina. So I will get working on that and provide you with details as soon as we can.
Right.